We are back in the black hole of real estate, and I've been getting a number of questions regarding the pricing of properties, believe it or not. And I thought I would take some time today to go through a process that would help anybody get a better handle on what specifically needs to be researched in order to properly price a property. This is your host, Ron Wysikarski, for the black hole of real estate. And, let's just start with the basics. There's honestly 3 or 4 things that really matter when you price a property. And I realize that you probably think there's a list of 50 or 60 things that are important, and you're not wrong. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really 3, maybe 4 things. So let's talk about those 3 or 4 things, and then we'll address some of the other things. The first thing, let's just say it's location. Now, I could argue location. Is it? Because that's what we always hear. And location is super important to most people. But I would remind anybody that any viable location can work for the right buyer to make a purchase, whether it's for an investment, as a rental, second home, or a primary residence. So even when the location is not as desirable as a different sort of location in some people's minds, it can be a viable location for many people. So location is super important if you want to be close to work or shopping or schools or amenities or sports or the arts. Yeah, location, absolutely, super important. If you want a walkable area where you can walk to go get your groceries and to go to restaurants and things, that could be super important. But it also mentioned that a location far away from everybody, or in the hills, or remote, or with acreage, that could also be important. So while we say location, it's going to be super specific to the end user, the buyer, of what's going to be important to them. So I absolutely say location is important, but your subset is for the available buyers that would like a property meeting that location specifics and what it provides and benefit to them. So that's location. Now, condition. See, this is in control of the owner. So if you are immaculate as far as the housekeeping and you're a maintenance ninja where everything is always fixed, maybe even advanced, and you're always seeking that one thing that can make the property, perfect, then condition in the control of the owner, that's going to be supremely helpful when you evaluate the property for price, as well as for a buyer that's looking for move-in ready condition. Now, let's remind all of us that some investors actually like the stinky, smelly properties they can fix up, and they can make some money through sweat equity and renovating homes. But let's just say for a moment that if you had a great location and its condition is letter perfect, in most cases that's going to be an advantage. I would say almost every case would be an advantage. So price and condition. Oh, did I mention price? Oh, let's set that aside for a second. See, let's skip into the back page of the book. But I know you're thinking price is important, and it will be. But let's go with location, condition. See, marketing's got to fit in there. So if you're going to select an agent, or even more importantly, if you're not going to select an agent to help you sell the property, then marketing, super important, because you got to get the word out. And with the proliferation of websites and portals where you can advertise these properties, in the ease that you can find them, then having a great write-up, having amazing photos and aerial shots and videos that go along with the property, that's the bar of expectation. And when you're missing those 4 key elements, your marketing is going to be off. Now, if you've got a syndication system or process available to you, or you make heavy investments into paying for those type of things and sending out to the portals, then you probably are going to do a little bit better as an owner. And if you're involving an agent, I would make sure when you interview agents that you are able to understand what it is that they're doing to market the property. Because we get a laugh sometimes. We talk about, the lower end or newer or just typical agent might use the 3Ps as their strategy, for selling the house. We put it on the MLS, we put a sign in the ground, and then we pray that it sells. And those are the 3Ps. So, hopefully you're getting more than the 3Ps, and you're syndicating with great marketing, great write-ups and blogs, and hitting all the portals with amazing photos, aerial shots, videos, those things. Super important. So now that we've got the three things, right? The location, the condition, and the marketing. Yeah, the last thing, of course, is price. And now we're saying, all right, so how do we figure out the price of the house? Well, I think you have to look at the first three things, and you have to understand everything that's currently on the market for sale has a price to it. Some went the route of a market analysis, maybe based on recent sales of nearby homes within a small radius of similar homes, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, amenities. Does it have a pool? Is it a gated community? Those type of things. So I think a market analysis is super important. But if you're only studying the current available homes, were they priced based on those facts, or was they emotionally priced? We talk about the PFA pricing strategy. I'm emotional. I love my house. It's the best one on the block. It's perfect. It's got everything, and no house could possibly compare. And by the way, I use PFA to get my price, which is plucked from the air. Because my house is so amazing, it just has to be worth $100,000 more than any other house in the neighborhood at the end. So the PFA method to price your home, I'd be careful of that. If you're looking at the available homes near yours and you want to use that for the pricing strategy, I would just caution you that if they're based on emotion and not fact, that's a really bad place to start. Now, I would look a lot at the, the sold properties. You see, the sold properties, those are the ones of evidence what a buyer and seller have agreed upon. Now, within that, let's make sure that we're comparing, the right type of homes. And if it's a single-family home, does it back up to water, which typically is preserved, or does it back up to a preserve, trees and things like that? Or does it have a neighbor right behind it, fence or no fence behind it? Because those are going to affect the property value. Same as with the condo. Does it have a view of the parking lot, a side view of the water, or is it direct ocean front? We need to look at some of these other factors which can mitigate the value of what it would be perceived in the minds of buyers. And truthfully, homes with different types of views, whether it's homes or condos, it's going to make a difference. So there's a lot that you can put into the pricing and the analysis of the property. But I would say this: if you want to get an accurate value of the home, you're going to have to look at some recent sales of similar properties. I would also look at the pendings to know that they're not quite sold yet. You would know the listing price, but you're not likely to know the sales price until those happen. And as far as the listing price, I think it's good to see what your competition is. And it might just be that if all the homes are in a similar price point and you're aggressive and want to sell faster, maybe pricing it just a little bit below what the competition is might be an advantage to you. Now, in a rising market, if you price it a little bit below, then you'll see what we said the last few years where homes went on the market, there was competing offers, and they actually bid the price up. To me, the danger of pricing the home a little bit too low really isn't a danger. It just means it's going to get a lot of showings and a lot of offers in the first weekend, and you can choose the price and terms that make the most sense to you. And I do think that pricing it too high causes you to linger on the market, where 30 or 60 days in, the market's anticipating that you're going to drop the price, 5, 10%. And of course, the longer you're on the market, in most cases, the worse off you're going to be. You see, time is the one thing that will erode your perception of your property's value. The truth serum is, if you put it out there at a price that you like, and there's no showings and there's no offers, the market's speaking pretty loudly like, hey, you're overpriced. So when you eventually get down 5 or 10%, you feel that you've taken a discount when really you're just getting it closer to where the market feels the value is. And this could cause a home to be on the market for 6 months or a year and never sell. So when you are pricing the property, we need to think about the emotions and maybe set this aside and be a little more pragmatic and say, what would the buyer be saying right now? If you were the buyer looking at your property, would you feel that it's the best in the neighborhood and it's worth a premium? Maybe not. So let's recap some pricing. Location, condition, marketing all affect the value. If you've got a well-priced property in a great area and the condition is such that the home is just impeccable, if there's no marketing, nobody's going to know about it. So that is a key component to the pricing, because occasionally one slips through the cracks like, well, how did that one sell for that price? Well, maybe it was for sale by owner, and they factored in that there was little or less commissions involved. Maybe that affected the value. Maybe there was a distress sale. They had a margin call and just had to sell really fast, or a relocation where they didn't have time to play around and they just sold it really fast. Or maybe it was a declining market and the seller says, you know what, I want to be the very next one to sell, because every sale, it's going to hurt. And if you're in a declining market, and I want you to hear this, and I'm not saying that we are, but if you were in an area where prices were declining, then you absolutely want to be the next sale, because every sale is going to hurt. And the price that you achieve today could be remarkably different than the one 2 or 3 months down the road when others have sold ahead of you, which have lowered the bar on pricing just a little bit, which affects your value. So now that we have some things that we can take into account as pricing the property, I haven't given you a formula because there isn't one. It shouldn't be 5 or 10% above this. It's none of those percentage things. It's what does the evidence tell you, and then based on that you can make some adjustments, just like an appraiser. If the other one is nicer and is renovated, has an extra bedroom, then you're going to have to take that into account when you price your property, because a 3-bedroom is not likely to sell for the same as a 4-bedroom if everything else is equal and the square footage is larger. And I hope that makes sense. If one has a pool and one doesn't, that could affect things. But if you have a pool, but it really is about to collapse and needs to be filled in, you may need to price the home as if it's a non-pool home. I've run into those lately. So listen, we could go on, I could go on for the next 30 minutes and not get to the bottom of how do you price properties. But I have given you the 3 or 4 things that matter and a few ideas about what might affect the value. Now, if you need a true evaluation of a home, you've got a couple of options. You can certainly do the research on your own. You could consult with a real estate professional, or you can actually hire an appraiser and have them give you another opinion of value. So I hope that helps a little bit about how to price properties. This is Ron Wojciechowski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.